Dzień dobry. Assalamu alaikum. Ciao, konnichiwa, bonjour, hola, privet. Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Ken at 10, and it's a big day today. Big day today. It's interest rate day, MPC Monetary Policy Committee meeting. Good morning and welcome. It's Ken at 10 because I'm Ken. It's 10 and this is what we do daily. Talk about property market, what's going on locally here in Southwest 16 in Norbury, which is sandwiched between Streatham to the north, Croydon to the south, if you don't know where we are. And we're estate agents at the coalface talking about the property market, what's going on, what's happening, and that's both locally and in the broader sense. As far as today's concerned, a very important day today in the calendar. That's because last month there was no Monetary Policy Committee meeting about interest rates. And so there's a lot of pressure on this meeting to make a decision, which is going to be a bad one, I'm afraid, for anybody that's got a mortgage. If you're lucky enough to have savings, then it could be good news for you. For the vast majority of people, we will find that it's going to hurt. We're talking about an interest rate rise probably of 0.75%. That's what's widely predicted. Could be as much as 1%. Even at 0.75%, that would be the highest for many, many years. And they're certainly going to hit people in the pocket hard. I know many people, especially younger people, will hear their parents go on about when interest rates hit 15% for them. Just some clarification on that. They never actually hit 15%, but some lenders did increase their rates to that heady height after the raise, because of course the Bank of England base rate is what mortgage companies base their rates on. So there has to be a margin for profit. So whatever the Bank of England base rate is, we can expect actual rates to be higher than that. That's how banks and building societies make their money. However, that gap is forever widening, which is a little frustrating. So what will it all mean? It will mean bigger payments. What can you do about it? And what does it mean, broadly speaking, in terms of mortgages? Well, tomorrow we have a very special podcast for you with Nicola McKenzie of DM Mortgages. She's a fantastic mortgage broker and knows all about these things and what you can do about them. So we will be getting the interest rate news from her tomorrow, what you can do about it, what's out there. And that should be a very interesting podcast. And we'll be recording that tomorrow. So I hope you can join us for that. And thank you for all of those of you that have downloaded the podcast, the Property Buyer and Sellers podcast. It's now over 1,500 downloads. And we're very grateful. We will continue to try and produce quality content to help you along the way. Now, as far as the market's concerned and what interest rates mean, one thing to bear in mind is when older people say to you, 15% rates, you don't know what it was like back then to what it is now. It's not actually quite true. Let me explain what I mean by that. In the 80s, when interest rates actually hit 15% or 11%, depending on which way round you want to call it, actually property prices were considerably lower. And this is what us oldies tend to forget, is that now property prices are so much higher that the equivalent interest rates today with a 0.75% rise will actually be the equivalent of those heady days when we all said, it was tough back then. It's tough now. It's really tough. And it's going to get tougher for people. And, there's no easy answers out there, to be frank. But there are ways that you can control your own domain. I always say when you've got problems in the broader economy and so much that appears depressing, then there are things you can do to make life a little bit easier within your own domain. Worry about what you can control, things like Russia, the wider economy, interest rates. There's nothing you can really do about those personally, is there? Perhaps take a vote as far as that's concerned. But that's for the long term when the next election comes along. But right now, what you can do about it is consider what action you can take to make things better. And that might mean turning the heating down or off, or not turning the heating on. I know for many people, it's a choice of whether to heat or eat. I also think it really is, it's kind of counterintuitive, but I do think it's a time when we should all, if we can, step up our contributions to charities, because those at the bottom are going to find this harder than those in the middle. Many of us will struggle with all of these, but these at the very bottom, people that are perhaps renting and on benefits, are really going to struggle to heat and eat, and therefore perhaps think about supporting your local food bank and local charities that can support these people on a day-to-day basis. That's something that we're certainly looking at right now, because we know it's going to be tough for people out there. And that goes for everybody. I don't know anyone that's not impacted by this, really. Perhaps pensioners on savings, you could say, interest rates going up. One thing that I do think is particularly unfair is that if you look at the margins that banks and building societies are charging, they're cheating us. Let me qualify what I mean by that. The gap between the base rate and the actual charged rate is widening, meaning that their profits are getting fatter while we all struggle. To me, that seems unfair. Similarly, they're not as quick to hike the savings rates as they are to hike their mortgage rates. Doesn't seem fair to me. I've always thought there should be some sort of legislation about that, making sure that that gap's within a reasonable margin, because there are those lenders, especially the specialist ones, of course, that are the last port of call for many. Who will be most affected? Well, right now it will be those on tracker mortgages and those on a variable rate mortgage. Of course, this is not financial advice. I should hasten to add, you should speak to an independent financial advisor if you want such advice. But it is widely held that interest rates will go up today. So it's going to be tough. And the next meeting after that is in December. That'd be a nice Christmas present, wouldn't it? Another rise after that. What are the predictions? Well, the predictions are that they continue to rise into perhaps the middle of next year or beyond. Some say that they might go as much as 4% or more. Others say that it will come down much earlier. The problem with interest rate movements is that actually they're quite a blunt instrument in that it takes a long time for the effect of an interest rate rise to hit, because many people are on fixed rate deals. Something like 300,000 people a month come off of those fixed rate deals, though, and find themselves in a market that is entirely different from when they last fixed, those lovely days when you could get 1 or 2 percentage point fixes. And that can be a bit of a shock. But worse than that, some lenders are now not lending to the very people they would have done before because they consider them a higher risk, or they consider that the mortgages are now unaffordable because of those increases in rates. So tough times out there. It's going to get tougher. I hope you're well. And we will be with you tomorrow for another Ken at 10. And then after that, we'll be speaking to Nicola McKenzie from DM Mortgages to see what you can do and how you can help yourself to get yourself the best deal possible when it comes to mortgages. As far as the market's concerned, I would say it's business as usual, but that's an extraordinary thing to say at this stage, isn't it? The truth is people are still out there buying, they're still selling, there's still death, debt and divorce. I know it's sad and awful, but that's the reality of it. And there are still people out there buying. There's an old saying, be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful. And it's true to say that I've seen many times like this when most of us would think, well, best thing to do is nothing, and then some smart money moves in and starts to buy. And right now, for instance, one of the groups that you might surprise you that's buying is Singapore. The Singaporeans, they're coming over here and using their dollars, which are much more valuable against the pound. But we're hearing the same thing about Americans and even Chinese are coming over and using the weakness in the pound versus the strengths of their currencies, particularly the dollar, to snap up prime property. Doesn't help most of us, but certainly the prime property market, as usual, the super rich are largely unaffected by these things, aren't they? But for the rest of us, tough times. Here in Southwest London, the weather is rainy, really rainy, and not getting better anytime soon. But hopefully things will brighten up later today. And I know this seems like a really long, dark tunnel we're in. It will end. It always ends. We just have to do what us Brits are really good at, and that is grind it out. There will be a point when these things start to unravel. Right now, we're in the midst of an economic crisis, no doubt. Will it end soon? I don't think so. I think we've got a world of pain to come yet, I'm afraid, but it will get better. Hopefully, by the middle of next year, we'll see a clearer picture of exactly when things will start to improve. But I think the era of cheap money is over. That's my gut feeling. So things are going to be a little bit more expensive, and we've got to get used to it. Why? Because we have no choice. What can we do about it? Well, we just need to make sure that everything is affordable to us and we don't overstretch when it comes to moving to a new property. Of course, for those that own in cash, and there's more than 50% of those in terms of homeowners in the UK, the effect is nil. And for those of the rest of us, something like 48%, it will have an impact on our monthly payments. And depending on the size of that mortgage, depends on the impact, unless you're on those fixed rates. And if you fixed long term, then good for you. Most of us are very jealous of that. Sometimes I see people and they're saying to me, well, we fixed for 10 years. And I'm like, wow, that seems like a really smart decision you made there right now. Because I don't think anyone really predicted. I mean, if you've been listening to our show a lot, you'll know that 6 months ago we were telling people, you should look to fix your rate. But nobody really anticipated the increase in interest rates to this level quite so soon. So that's it for today. Hope you're having a great day. Look after yourselves. And if you can, your family and friends. We'll be back same time tomorrow, tell you what the new rates are and what's going on. Until then, stay safe, look after yourselves. And if you can, your family and friends. Ciao.